What's up guys, Spin Firearms here, and today I'm going to talk about builds, and we're going to show a lot of builds in this video, so you'll see a lot of my different cool builds. Not all of them, I probably have about 15 or 20 Glock builds, but in this video, let's see, I'll show you guys 5 or so. Anyways, that's a big thing that I do over here, and what I really, stand for and what I like, and it's being able to do builds. Now, I try to help you guys and tell you how to do it the cheapest way. Buying cheap Glock frames from Big Tech's Ordnance, places like that, where you can get the frame. I used to get my Glock 26 frames $50 a piece. Or if it was a completed lower, like $110. It was awesome. Anyways, same with the Glock 43 frames. They have them really cheap. And those are the two that you can really make awesome builds with for pretty cheap. And the reason why I say make builds is because, one, you get to learn firearms. You get to learn about tolerances. You get to learn about aftermarket parts and so on. Now, I recommend on all your Glock builds, you should be using Glock OEM parts, because that basically guarantees they're going to run. And the difference between a Polymer 80 and a Glock build is a Polymer 80, you're drilling the holes. Whereas a Glock build, and it's just the frame, those were drilled and those were made perfectly at the Glock factories. And they were made perfectly to fit Glock OEM parts. So if you use OEM Glock parts on a build like this, where you have Glock internals, obviously my trigger is different here, but that's just because it's a build. You don't have to use Glock OEM parts, but if you're going to carry it or ever use it for home defense or self-defense, you're going to want to use OEM parts. Or if you just want to build that runs, use OEM parts. Anyways, this is an example why I love making builds and why I'm a strong advocate for them. Now, do I carry my builds? Sure. Every now and then I do carry my builds. Like this right here, I made this directly for everyday carry. And I made sure to use parts that are reliable. So it's all Glock internals except for the Wheaton Arms trigger and trigger kit. But Hooper Gunworks makes great reliable parts, and that's who did the slide. Ghost this is a gray Ghost precision barrel. They make awesome Glock barrels and other barrels that just run. So on here I have reliable parts, and that's the difference. So there's Glock OEM parts, which are going to be reliable, but then you also have companies like Apex, Wheaton Arms, Hooper Gunworks, and so on that make very reliable parts that run with Glocks, and you can trust them. But the main test for a build is going to the range, putting 500 rounds through it. When I completed this build, I put 300 rounds through it in like 3 minutes. Ran it till it was hot. The barrel was hot to the touch. The slide was hot to the touch. It was smoking. It was dirty. It was gunked up. And once I knew that it could run 300 rounds just nonstop, I didn't go boom, boom. I didn't take my time. I went boom, 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 boom. Basically mag dumping, but controlled groups. I was making sure every time my sights were back on target before I fired. I wasn't just doing hammer groups and letting the trigger go. I always make sure I'm getting some form of training, even if you're shooting fast. But anyways, it ran reliably. And it's ran reliably every single kind of ammo I've ran through it, every round, everything. So I consider this to be a reliable carry firearm. Now, a lot of companies out there, or a lot of these influencers out there, a lot of these influencers out there are not going to do builds, and they're not going to talk about builds, and they're not going to advocate for builds. Whereas like a Polymer 80 build, I say you should do them because you learn firearms, and you feel like you're a part of it. You made something, you built something. Whereas builds like this, you get to make what you want, and you don't have to do, like a lot of people get under my comments and videos. They're like, oh, you're so dumb, Glock perfection, right? Then why'd you change out the slide, the trigger, the grips? I'm like, first of all, it's a build. Why do you speak on stuff you know nothing about? I didn't buy a Glock for $600 and then change everything out. I wouldn't do that. I bought the frame and built it up how I wanted it. For instance, this is my Glock 27 build right here, and I just went cheap on the slide, but it's a reliable slide. I got Glock OEM night sights, Glock barrel, millspin, glass breaker, base plate, and the thing's ran. It's in 40, and I have the same exact build for my Glock 33 chamber 357 SIG. Both of them have ran I think the 357 SIG is almost at 1,000 rounds, reliable. This 40 is maybe at 1,500 rounds, reliable. I have a video of me shooting this exact one, 150 or 200 rounds, breaking it in. It got super hot to the touch, same thing, controlled mag dumps, and it ran. It runs. I don't carry it as much, but I could carry it if I wanted to because it's reliable. I use Glock internals and on a Glock frame. Now, once you start going to different brands like cheap parts kits, that's where you have issues. I don't like cheap part kits, especially if I'm going to carry the firearm at all. For instance, here's a build right here. This is Glock internals except for the Apex trigger, but Apex makes good, reliable firearm parts. They are well known. They even have some parts that are designed simply just to fix the issue you're having with your Glock OEM parts. Anyways, got my Houston 507C, millspin base plate, millspin back plate to match, handle Edge Series grips, live-free armory slide. Now, it's a budget slide, but live-free armory makes good, reliable parts. That's what I ran. I think I ran one of these slides, not this exact one, but my other one on my old everyday carry. It had like 9,000 rounds to it, not a single issue. And it just ran. Got a TTS custom barrel here. Anyways, yeah, just good, reliable firearm parts. That's your answer. Now, do I carry my stock Glock 26? Yes, I do. I'm actually carrying this right now. This is what I've been carrying. And do you have a better sense of this is always going to be reliable? Yes, you do. But when it comes to a build that I designed simply around everyday carry, I have the same feeling with this. I trust this just as much because I've vetted it. It's all about vetting your firearms. I had someone say, I've put 200 rounds through my Glock over the last year or whatever. I'm like, 200 rounds? I'm going to be doing that today or tomorrow. And I get it costs money and so on, but I don't consider that reliable yet. I think you really need to push your firearm to limits and then take it home, clean it, and you'll know it's reliable. Anyways, it's all about what you do with your firearm, how you test it, running crappy ammo through it, all that. You know, for instance, here's a build. So this has a gun cut slide. These are aftermarket Glock parts, but they're from the Glock store. The Glock store has been, in close connection with Glock itself, the company. Therefore, they make great parts that have, they have different tolerances, but not as big as some of these other aftermarket parts. They're in such close connection with Glock that they make good, reliable parts. Now, the slide, this is gun cuts. I wasn't 100% sure how reliable they'd be, but it's ran. It's a great slide. It runs. Slides tend not to be the issue. Sometimes it's the Cerakote jobs that cause issues. Sometimes it's just you get a bad slide, but slides don't tend to be the issues. It tends to be the internal parts kits as well as barrels. A lot of times it has to do with your trigger bar that a lot of these aftermarket companies mess up. Some companies over polish. Some companies just don't put them at the right angle, so you have issues. But a build like this, as long as I put more rounds through it, I would carry it. I just don't because I designed this for everyday carry, so I tend to carry this Glock 26 when I'm carrying. Not a single issue. I trust it with my life. I would continue. And that's the thing that you don't see a lot on YouTube with influencers. You don't see them talk about, oh, you should do this build, or oh, this slide, or this barrel is great. You see them only talk about the bone stock firearm, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's a whole nother side to firearms, which is if you have the money, if you have the want, to customize them and make them what you want or how you want them to look and so on. And that's why I always go back to this right here, because I built this with everyday carry in mind. Reliable slide, reliable trigger, awesome, super accurate barrel, one of the most accurate barrels other than the Wilson combat barrel that I've ever used. Nice sights, and I just designed what my perfect firearm from Glock would look like. But does that mean that there's anything wrong with OEM firearms? No. I'm just saying I like the other side of firearms as well, that you should be able to customize some over here, keep some of these stocks. So that's what I do basically. I keep one stock of every Glock that I have. So my Glock 39 is stock. I have a stock Glock 27, stock Glock 19, stock Glock 26, stock Glock 45. But I also have 10 Glock 26s. I have 10 Glock 26 builds. I have 127 build, 133 build. We have a 23/19 build on the way. So I just feel like it's an important part of firearms to be able to create what you want and build what you want. That's why I try to tell these people in the comments, don't speak on stuff you know nothing about. I buy the frames and I build up. I don't buy it like this and turn it into this, because now you have all these parts that you spent money on that you're not doing anything with. So that's why I recommend to people do it like that. Find the frame for cheap and use Glock internals. If you're going to be carrying, use reputable brands and you should have no issues. But the only way to know if you're going to have issues or not is by testing that firearm and making sure that it runs reliably. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys.